if we zoom out, we're like flying on a fucking rock at 86,000 miles an hour through space in the unknown. And it's like safety is not a real fucking thing, like ever.
Yeah,
really.
like our seatbelt on this fucking roller coaster is gravity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an imaginary fucking thing.
Yeah, and there's also
that we
debate
can't
about
even
that.
see, right?
What the fuck is gravity? You know? Yeah, and so maybe the goal isn't to be safe. Maybe the goal is to be okay without feeling safe.
I was trying to remember it, and I can't remember. I don't remember. But how many podcasts have we done together? Because you were on the old Energy is Love like 2 or 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot.
In the van days.
Right?
Yeah.
Back in the day. I don't know if we've ever talked about that before, but Steph and I used to do this old podcast. Like, obviously, there's the Steph and Craig show and everything. But back in the day, there was this, the original podcast that we started was called Energy is Love. And I used to record it in our minivan sometimes because it's got great audio. It's like a perfect little sound booth where you can control everything. And
yes,
I used to literally go out because I used to do like intros for that podcast. So, you know, guest descriptions and things like that. And I would go out into the garage and just set everything up real quick with a microphone and the recorder in the garage and just sit in the van. Usually I'd be smoking and hotboxing in the van while I was doing those little intros for it. So you've been around a while, dude.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you're here.
Me too.
I'm incredibly excited for this. It's, as you know, we've got a handful of guest co-hosts that have been coming on the podcast while Ben is out doing his new gig, learning all of his new things for his new job. And today we've got Stephen Roccazella, who's an old buddy of mine. You're not old. That made it sound like you're old.
Well, I mean, I'm about halfway through the journey. So,
yeah. No, Stephen and I have been friends for a very long time. And he moved out to Tennessee a few years before I did. But we originally, you know, were friends back in the day in Utah and all of that jazz. And now we're completely different men than when we met, which I think is awesome. I think it's amazing to have a friendship that has lasted this long, to be able to see like a growth, the evolution, the process that's taken place. Do you think oftentimes of how different you are than you used to be?
Yeah. I'm realizing it more and more. You know, it's noticing just situations, how I would react or respond or judge a situation or a choice that I made, or now versus just even a year or two ago. It seems like it's been a very rapid progression of change and evolution. You know, it's been on fast forward. It seems like the last couple of years.
It's kind of hard though, isn't it? I think a lot of times for me, it's I get my head down and I just be going through life. No, but it's like life just keeps going and my head's down and I'm working and I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing to get through the experience. And it always kind of feels the same day in and day out. Like the thought process, the things that I'm experiencing, what I'm going through, it feels very similar if I'm just in the day-to-day of it. And it really takes I have to take the opportunity to pause and reflect and look back and then really just look at it and see like how different not just my life is. That's sometimes easier, but like how different I am and how different my thoughts are and how different my feelings are and how my outlook on life is really, really different. I think that's a really big thing of how we change like our ideas, our perceptions, and the way that we see the world around us. Like if you think back to not just, you know, the time that we met and everything like that, and as long as we've been friends, but how has your perception about the world and your place in the world changed and evolved?
Oh, wow, dude. Yeah, that's big. Well, I think So COVID really like opened up my eyes to a lot of things, and that changed how I perceive the world quite a bit. For better in some instances and worse in others. I feel like I see things where I think I might have appreciated my little bit of naivety and like seeing the world a certain way, and it seemed like a fairly safe place, especially here in America and all that stuff. And then, like seeing the way things went down, that like shook me a little bit, and it's put me into a little bit of a state of like kind of chronic low grade fight or flight where I'm very skeptical of things, and I'm very cautious, and so but it was a necessary thing to go through, and now it's like I've evolved into like being okay knowing these things that I know now. It's like, it's kind of like, I'm like, okay, so this is how the world works, and that's okay. It's still, there's a lot of beauty and there's a lot of good, and it's not, it's like, but yeah, there's also this other shit that am I allowed to?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely fucking swear on this podcast.
Right, okay.
There's a running joke where at some point I heard on Whitney Cummings' podcast, she talked about in the first 10 minutes, if there's any sort of like, swearing or anything that would get you demonetized or flagged on YouTube, they'll go through and edit that out. So they'll have a bunch of bleeps and whatnot in the first 10 minutes because that's what the algorithm is looking at and snagging and everything like that. And I've never fact checked it. I have no idea if that's actually the case, but it's kind of like the running thing between both podcasts, Steph and Craig, and this one is it's like, we try not to swear in the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I don't think we've made it yet. It happens all the time.
Okay.
My favorite is like, there was one episode, dude, where it was like, in the first minute and a half, it was just fuck. It was nonstop. So yeah, we can definitely swear.
Okay. So I've learned to be okay in this new awareness of like things in the world, and of course there's probably lots more that I'm not aware of, and I'm okay with that for now. Just let those things come as they will. But I can give you like a personal example of something that I've noticed in myself where I really shifted was like this year when I did my taxes.
Okay.
And I've been an entrepreneur and self-employed for almost a decade now, and when I owned my barbershop, it's like I always owed taxes, right? Yeah. But that was like a good thing because that means that I made pretty good money that year, And then when I moved here, the barbershop closed, and I moved out to Nashville, and I started this like new career. I wasn't making nearly as much, and I still don't, but I had more bills than ever. And so like tax time became this thing where it was like, I was really scared, like, shit, am I going to owe, or am I going to get a refund, or like what's going to happen there? And it was always it was always just a very nerve wracking time. And so like this year, as I was like tallying up all of my expenses and what I made throughout the year, it started looking like, I was like, oh man, like I actually did pretty good this year. I might owe. And then it was like, wait a minute. Like I made that much money doing what I do and having all of this freedom to like pick up my daughter from school or take her to school or to homeschool my son, to earn a living doing breath work, sitting in rooms with people and watching them have these beautiful big experiences and watching their lives change as I work with them over the course of several months. Like I made that much money doing that. Like, whoa, that's fucking awesome.
It is
and
awesome.
I was like, I don't even care if I owe, dude. Like this is the dream right here, and it was, so that was, I think, an evidence of my seeing things differently and not moving so much from fear anymore. It was like, wow, like this is pretty cool. I'm gonna have to pay some fucking taxes this year, but it's because like I made that much money doing this fucking awesome thing for a living.
Yeah.
And it was and I was like, wow, this is new for me. I usually don't react in this way to things like this. I'm usually pissed off or paranoid about it, and I'm like, I'm actually really happy. And then I actually didn't owe. I broke even, which was nice.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was even better.
That's what I'm always trying to figure out when it comes to tax time is because we had the same experience this year, just in the opposite end. Where it was like, oh, we made that little money doing the things that we're doing, and we ended up getting like $1,000 back. But I'm always like trying to hack the system of like, I need to know the exact number of like what we need to put down on paper, so then we don't actually owe anything. I'm okay if we don't necessarily get anything back. I mean, everybody likes a big fat, tax return, but that doesn't really happen anymore when it comes to the whole self-employed entrepreneur. It's like the idea of those. I mean, back in the day when Steph and I were both working, we were getting like 3, 4, 5 grand back sometimes in taxes.
Yeah.
And I don't think those days are ever going to come back. But I like the thing that we gave up for that, though.
Yeah,
I like life this way much, much better.
Well, I was going to ask you, like back when when you brought up the memories of the van days, and I want to ask you how like when you were doing this Energy is Love podcast in the van, like did you?
It was down by a river, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. The van by the river. No, like, did you see this?
Oh, fuck no. Yeah, no, I didn't see any of this stuff.
Okay.
It was just simply like, it was something, it was kind of something to do originally. It was like when the podcast first started in 2016, it was not right after, it was a little bit after I had, trying to remember the time frame of it. That's the other thing too. Like, I don't know how these old people that are like in their 70s tell you the dates and it was January 25th, 1960. Right. I'm like, I have no idea. But I feel like it was about a year later after being fired from being a cop that a buddy of mine came over and he was starting a podcast, and we just sat down at the kitchen table and recorded this little podcast episode for the show that he was doing, and got done with it. And I looked over at Steph. She like hung out in our living room, and I was like, that was really fun. Like, I really liked that. And then I kind of sat on it for a few days thinking in the background, I'm like, I think I want to do that. Like, that would be fun. That would be something fun to do. So that's all it was in the beginning. It was kind of like something for me to do, because I definitely needed something to do. I hadn't yet really found what was next for me. I was kind of floating around and doing energy healing and sessions and fairs, and was trying to make a living doing that. And it wasn't, I wasn't making a living doing it. It wasn't very lucrative, but I enjoyed it. And the podcast became just kind of an extension of that to some extent. But I never really saw it evolving the way that it did evolve, because originally it was just me. Like, I started the podcast, I was running around doing episodes with everybody when I used to travel for a DreamPod and installing those tanks. I would take all of the equipment and gear with me. Like, not only would I pack my suitcase full of everything that I needed to do installation for the float tank, but on top of it, I'd have like all my mics and my recorders, and like I had these little portable microphone stands. And then I would hit up people out in the middle of fucking nowhere that had like some sort of crystal shop or did some sort of energy work or something, and just send them a message. It's like, do you want to be on a podcast? And then I'd get done with the tank and then drive over and sit in somebody, like it was, I did a lot of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And, but as far as like ever seeing the way that podcasting would evolve in our lives, yeah, it's like I never thought that it would get to this. And it was also like during that time frame when we started, it was just audio, and that was pretty much what all podcasts were. There wasn't the video component to podcasting back then. It was very much just an audio medium. And so I never really saw the transition into video until it started happening. Like, we started to see more and more podcasts that were had the video component to it. And then I got to the point where it was like I had audio down. I could do audio really well, all the editing and everything. And then it was I think, because we've done this math too before, but I think it was in 2019 And we finally decided, I decided, I told Steph, because at some point Steph came on board as co-host of Energy is Love, and then it just turned into a completely different podcast where it just evolved into, you know, her and I and our path and our experiences and everything.
Yeah.
And we just started off with a cell phone. I literally set my cell phone up and figured out how to sync up the audio to it. And we put we were out back in our backyard at a table sitting there smoking. We used to do tons of podcasts in the backyard just so that we could smoke. And but yeah, man, I never saw this. And I love it. Like, I love having the studio. I love having it be this like, this was my dream version of what podcasting would look like. And but I didn't necessarily think that we'd ever get there. And so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see what it is today.
Thank you.
It's a long answer.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. So the next question would be, does it look or feel anything like you thought it would?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think yes and no. Like, I think there's parts of it that, like, I wouldn't have pictured it in a spare bedroom in a house in Tennessee. You know, that's definitely not how I envisioned it.
Yeah.
But I think that it feels natural. It feels comfortable. It kind of feels like I thought it would feel like. I really enjoy podcasting. Like, we were having a conversation last night where it's like, what were we talking about? Let's see if I can pull this up, because it was also maybe it was something that I was going to tell you. No, it was kind of the thing where waiting for somebody to give you permission to do something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never really thought about the podcast or being a podcaster as, you know, like, that I would call myself that. Yeah, we had a podcast and we did a podcast, but it was always something that was kind of like secondary to whatever else we were doing. And now I really think about myself as a podcaster because, I mean, fucking almost a decade of doing podcasts. And Braveman Dare's the third podcast that I've launched. And so it's like, yeah, that's what podcasters do. Do you know what I mean? Like, they fucking do podcasts and they do all the creation process and the editing and like the expansiveness of doing this studio and the lighting and getting all the cameras. And that was like a whole other evolution growth process that I had to go through. Because even when Steph and I were still doing Energy is Love before it evolved into the Steph and Craig show, we still just had one single camera. We evolved from the cell phone to a GoPro. And so I was getting a little bit better video quality out of the GoPro. And we were in this same room, and we had a table over against that wall and just set up our little GoPro. We weren't smoking anymore, but and evolving into this was like a huge, not just I had to learn more things and expand, but also it involved, because this feels more like this is more of a production. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before it was like we would just sit down and record whenever we, you know, were ready to record an episode. We still do that today, but this feels like you're walking onto a set. This feels like something is happening. This feels like you know what I mean, producing something. And then all the content that comes from this is also very much different. And that's been cool. That's been a really cool experience to kind of evolve and grow into that. But I was kind of waiting for permission or like somebody to come along and like, oh, you're a podcaster. And nobody does. Like, nobody comes and shows up and says, you're a podcaster, right? Nobody shows up.
Here's your certificate.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
I definitely need a certificate. Somebody's got to make me a certificate. You can't hang it on the fucking fridge. But that's the thing, is it's like just stepping into it and owning it. And when we were talking about that last night, I was going to tell you about, because I mentioned that I had been listening to Robert Rodriguez a little bit. And he was talking on Lex Friedman's podcast about his, like, he used it in the context of like, he wasn't out of shape or fat or overweight or anything, but he wasn't really in shape. And he was telling the story about how he kept hurting his back and kind of like throwing out his back because he was operating the camera and doing all of this work for hours and hours and hours. And is it Ricardo Montalban? Is that like that old school actor that's been around? He was in Spy Kids and stuff, I think.
Yeah, it sounds super familiar.
Yeah. And so there was like, he was telling the story about Ricardo Montalban, and he's like in his 70s or 80s, and Robert's like whatever, like in his 40s or something like that. And he, you know, threw out his back and he was like, yeah, Robert, you've got to work out. Like, you got to do something. And he always resisted it for a really long time. And he was trying to figure out how to like get in shape. And then it dawned on him that, because he has this belief about, you know, he talked about it through that lens of like, when you believe that you are something, then that's what happens. Like, that's what you create. So it's like, if you're like an amateur filmmaker, then you're going to be making amateur films. You're always going to be stuck in that thing because you've given yourself that label. So you're going to be seeing it from that perspective. And so he always had this understanding of himself that he wasn't really an athlete and that he didn't really work out and it wasn't something that he was really into. So this is the mindset that he had. And so he just shifted up that mindset and he's like, I'm an athlete. And so I do what athletes do. Athletes exercise, athletes work out, athletes do this. And then he got in shape and, you know, did all these different things. And I think about that where it's like the ability to just redefine yourself instantaneously, in a sense, based off of what you want to do and how you identify yourself and shifting up that mindset. And so it's like, there's a part of me that has to look at it like, okay, I'm a podcaster, I'm a content creator, I'm all of these different things, and owning that rather than being like, well, I kind of do this thing, and I, you know, I can kind of do that. And it's like, no, this is what I fucking am. This is what I fucking do. And it changes and evolves, and I get to decide that. I get to pick and choose. I feel like I just talked a lot. That was you talk now.
Oh man, I was trying to get you talking so that I wouldn't have to talk so much.
Right, I see what you're doing. You got your little fucking.
No, I wanted to know, you know, because I know for me in this career that I have now, you know, like, I mean, I moved to Nashville with the goal in mind that, like, if I'm not going to own my own barbershop, then I don't want to cut hair anymore. Yeah. Because if I have to work for somebody else, then I don't want to do it. As much as I love the trade and I love everything about that doing barbering, it was an incredible career, you know, but like what made it awesome was that it was my shop. Yeah. And I got to make it my way, and I didn't have to ask anybody for permission on what, you know, how to run it and what to charge and all that. Like, I had that power for my own direction in my life, you know. And so I was like, if I can't do that out here, what do I do? You know, and it was like, well, there's no Wim Hof instructors in Nashville that I'm aware of. I don't see anybody putting on workshops. And now it was like deep COVID lockdown time, you know, so there wasn't a lot of that stuff going on anywhere in the world. But I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And so it's been this crazy journey over the last several years to get to the point where I'm now like sustaining myself and supporting my kids and meeting all of my financial obligations, doing this. What started out as just Wim Hof, and now it's evolved into more than that. But yeah, it doesn't exactly look or feel anything like I thought it would, even though like I set the goal and I achieved the goal. Now it's like, okay, so where do I go next with this? You know, what do I do next? And so I thought in my mind, like back when I first made this decision, I had this idea of like what it would look and feel like. And it was just getting there. It was very different, and it was better in a lot of ways. And it wasn't what I thought it would be in some other ways. And so it's been just curious if that was, you know, that way.
Yeah,
for
I
your
think that's
journey
like
too.
the important part is you have to have some sense of like the idea of what it's going to be so that you have a direction to go towards, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, I know that because we talked about you're reading Rick Rubin's book, and it's that same thing where it's like you have to be open to looking completely different than you thought it was going to look. Open to letting go of the pieces that you thought you needed. Like we let go of Energy is Love. And I thought for sure that was going to be like the fucking podcast that we did forever.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It was totally like, I thought we were just going to do that podcast with 3 cameras and lights and a whole new studio. I didn't realize that we were going to let go of that podcast. And that process was really challenging and hard. But I think that was what got us to where we're at today in some extent, right? So the willingness to be able to have an idea, have an intention, and also be able to just let it go at a whim, in a sense. Be willing to just watch it leave.
Yeah.
And be okay with that, because something else is going to fill that space. And that's the hard part. Like, that's where it comes into, like, how good are you at managing fear, right? Let go of things.
Yes.
That's so fucking hard. That's the space that I'm in right now. Still, I'm looking at all these different things that I feel like I am ready to let go of. But it's like it's always that same old thing where it's kind of what people do with jobs. It's what people do with relationships, where it's like, I'm ready to let go of this relationship, but I don't have another one yet. And so, I mean, that's like my story, my whole fucking life.
Yeah.
I never had any time away from, I was never out of a relationship longer than a couple of months at the, and usually they blended and just went from fucking up one relationship into another relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Have you struggled in that same way? Not necessarily with relationships, but that idea of letting go of something and struggling with it because you can't necessarily see what's coming next, or you don't have next, or what's next real clear in your sights.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So I had that same belief around the refinery barbershop. I thought this was what I was going to own this thing for the rest of my life, and I was going to expand it, and I was going to be a barber, but I would, like, my role would shift more from operate, or from doing the work to managing and that kind of a thing. But that's what I thought I was going to be forever, and then the shop closed down during the COVID lockdowns with no time to reopen. And so that, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm letting my shop, the barbershop, go.
Yeah.
Like, this thing I'd been building for 6 years, like it's I can't grow it now. I can't even get in there. I can't even get into my shop to cut hair, so I had to let that go, and I let it go very quickly. And I really didn't give myself a chance to, like, mourn that or process that. It was just like, okay, well, I got to go make money. Now's the time, move to Nashville, be with your kids, take on this new thing. So yeah, I had to let that go, and then when I came out here, I cut hair for a little while. So I still had that identity. And then there came a time where I was like, okay, if I'm going to fully step into this work, I can't be 1 foot in the barber world to stay safe financially and then try to build this new profession or adventure. I needed to go 2 feet in, just like that's what I had to do as a barber transitioning from law enforcement to barber. Yeah. I had to just go 2 feet,
because it's the same thing kind of during that time period too, if I remember right, where it was like you were doing both to some extent for a little bit.
Yeah.
Weren't you?
Barbering. And no. So I went to barber school at night when I worked for the sheriff's office.
Well, that's kind of the thing.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So but I wasn't a professional barber yet. I wasn't a licensed barber. It was just going to school. And so I asked my instructor, my barber instructor, who was this like 90-something-year-old, barber sage. I was like, so how do can I cut hair part-time, while I slowly transition out and build a clientele? And he's like, no, you need to just go for it. I was like, yeah, but I've got a stay-at-home mom, wife, and 3 young kids. Like, I can't just leave this career. Yeah. And he's like, you just got to commit. You got to go for it. And I got lucky that time, because I ended up getting a job working for this place called The Art of Shaving. And it was the one of the few, like, barber jobs that paid hourly.
Oh, nice.
Not commission. And there was only one Art of Shaving barber chair in the whole state of Utah. and like I got it. Like I got the job. It just happened to open up right when I was graduating from barber school. So I had lined up that job right as I was about to graduate barber school, and then I turned in my notice with the sheriff's office, and it was like this seamless transition from sheriff's office to professional barber to the art of shaving that was paying me the same amount hourly that I was making after 12 or 13 years or whatever it was at the sheriff's office. So I was very lucky, because even at...
Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Heritage Still. If you're serious about quality in the kitchen, it's time to check out Heritage Still. All their cookware is handcrafted right here in Tennessee.
Heritage Steel isn't just another cookware brand. This is American craftsmanship at its finest, using high-quality, multi-clad stainless steel to give you unmatched durability, precision, and performance. Whether you're searing, sauteing, simmering, or good old-fashioned pan frying, these pans are built to last for generations.
Their cookware is safe for any cooking surface. It's easy to clean, and every piece comes with a lifetime warranty.
And right now, Brave Men Dare listeners, I'm talking to you. You guys can save an extra 10% off. Go over to www.heritagesteel.us/brave. Make sure you use the promo code BRAVE, all caps, to get that extra 10% off at checkout. Upgrade your kitchen with the cookware that's going to stand the test of time.
Heritage Still, chef-grade cookware for less.
Like hair cutting jobs that pay hourly. It's at like a Sports Clips or one of these places, and you're making, $10 an hour or what. I don't know what it is now, because this was like, almost a decade ago.
Yeah, but it's probably not. It's not decent at those big chain places.
Yeah, and then you kind of live off of tips in a way, right? So I was like, I cannot do that, or the commission. I couldn't do that either, because I didn't have a clientele. So this was like a very safe. So there on that transition, I had a little bit of like a safety net. I was like, I was able to make the move in professions without there really being any sort of, risk.
Yeah.
Right. But then after about a year at the Art of Shaving, I was like, I'm ready to open my own shop. And then so that was a leap, where I had to go into the unknown a little bit. And then doing what I do now was a huge leap into the unknown. So yeah, I'm pretty used to that. Like I've really learned to trust life and just jump without a safety net, which is awesome.
It is. It is awesome. It's
also fucking terrifying. Yeah, it's also very stressful and terrifying, and my nervous system doesn't love it a lot of the times. But
do you feel like you're at another one of those transition points where you're going from, evolving into what's next? Like you're kind of like you go from the sheriff's office to barber school to Art of Shaving to your own. And then you move, and like, does it feel like you're about to, or that you are making that next leap into something else?
Yes. Yeah. It's like when I first became a Wim Hof instructor, that was something that I just did for fun. I still owned my barbershop. I'm in Utah. I loved doing the Wim Hof method, and it had such a profound effect on my life. I was like, well, I just want to share this with people. So I went and got certified as an instructor, but then I was like, well, that's just something I'll just do as like a side hustle for fun, because I make plenty of money as a barber and I've got that job and I only have to do that 3 or 4 days a week, and then I've got other guys working for me. So I can just do the Wim Hof stuff for fun when I want to. And then when I moved out to Nashville, I was like, okay, well, now I want to do it as a career, and so like that's how I'm known a lot in Nashville as like the Wim Hof guy, or like the ice bath guy, or the breath work and like ice bath guy. And now I've been a Wim Hof instructor going on 6 years, and I don't know if I want to keep that certification anymore. Like that ice bathing has become such a popular thing, and there's so many people offering that service and coaching in that service that are not Wim Hof instructors, and that's fine. It's not like Wim Hof owns any of these things, but
it's got a trademark on on ice baths.
Exactly. Yeah, or like breathing. Right. Yeah. So it's like, well, can I continue on my path without needing to be associated with Wim Hof or the Wim Hof method? Like, have I done enough here in Nashville to build a reputation and a name for myself as a breathwork and cold exposure coach? Or do I need to keep that Wim Hof certification, because like it's been a big part of my identity, you know. But I also know that those are all things that I do. They're not who I am.
Yeah.
So it really has nothing to do with my identity at all. But but there is that, you know, I've relied on that. It's that certification, and now I'm feeling like, oh, I don't know if I need that anymore. And do I want to keep paying annually for that certification that I really don't use that much anymore, because I'm kind of doing my own version of it. Not that I want to brand it and market it. I know a lot of people want me to do that, you know, but like I'm doing my own thing. And do I need that safety net anymore of being able to put Wim Hof instructor on my resume, you know, when I'm looking to get hired at a place. So it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm ready to maybe move away from that. I have a few more weeks before I absolutely have to pay for my certification. I don't know yet what I'm going to do, but it's definitely on my mind. But I've been known as a Wim Hof instructor for so long. Like, who am I without that?
Yeah.
You know? So
I think the fact that you bring up identity, I think is, that's what I feel like is all of this is representative of, right? Because we kind of label ourselves and we claim these identities based off of what we do for a living and what we do for work, and how we, you know, it's how other people identify us as well. It's like, oh, you're a barber, or you're a corrections officer, or you're a cop, or you're a podcaster, or you're a Wim Hof, like all of these labels and things like that. Like you said, I don't think, obviously that's not who you are. It's just something that you do, right? And I've been really trying to understand, because I think that's the external example of what's taking place internally within me, where I have to let go of all of these external examples of what I am or what I do, and allow for that process to just kind of like flow rather than holding on to it forever as some form of identity. And that's how I keep myself safe and feel like I have worth and value in the world. But then there's another layer for me where I'm trying to understand, like, am I willing to let go of all the other identities that I have that don't have anything to do with what I do for work or do for a living? Like, am I willing to let go of husband? Am I willing to let go of father? Am I willing to let go of man? Am I willing to let go of Craig? And then it gets like super fucking, not just interesting for me, but scary, like even more so than letting go of security from a job or something like that. Do you ever think about those aspects of like, what part of your identity are you willing to let go of in order for something else to come through and take place? Because I think it's the exact same thing, right? Like, whether or not you do or don't let go of the Wim Hof certification and move on into whatever's next for you, you know, that process, it's the same thing where if you have some internal thing that you can free yourself from and recognize that it was the same thing, it was just a label, it was just something that you were given as a form of identity. If you let that go, what's next? There's going to be something that comes in and replaces it. And yeah, it's probably just going to be some other form of identity, right? Because that's the process, I think. But at the same time, I feel like there's like, that's how we really start to evolve. It's not just changing mindset and healing and things like that, but it's like we get the opportunity to be something completely different if we're willing to let go of what we think we really are.
What was the question in there?
Are you questioning any of those type of deeper things, as far as like what form of your identity are you holding on to that maybe not necessarily isn't any? Because I don't think of it as like these things aren't serving me anymore. Like, I'm not going to let go of being a father, but I'm also not letting that be something that defines me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's something that you like to do.
It is,
but it's not who you are.
Yeah.
Right. It's a role
like,
that you're playing.
I've recognized over the years with it where I've used it as like a safety net, where being a father was something that I prided myself on and I love, and you know, I'm proud of being a father. I enjoy being a father. I know that we've had conversations, and it's like I go back and forth on whether or not I'm a good father, but I do feel like I'm a good father. But at the same time, I've seen how that has held me back in regards to certain things, because I think about what it would feel like to move forward from that space. And like I said, not letting go, because like the idea of if I let go of the identity of being a father, then somehow I'm letting go of like my kids. And like, that's not at all the case. It's just, it's no longer something that I have to hold on to so strongly in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does. Yeah.
But that's just one example. Do you think about those things? Like, what are you willing to let go of in order to see what's next?
Well, right now it's probably the Wim Hof certification would be, but there's a lot there. Yeah. Well, we could go back to what you'd mentioned about your relationships, right? How like you kind of like went from one to another, and I used to think like that a lot too. Like after I left my marriage, I was immediately, on a dating app, which was kind of a new thing at the time. Like it was Tinder, and that was the one, that like at least that I knew of. Now we got some options out there, but I was like trying to immediately replace, female companionship in my life, like as soon as possible. And then I kind of developed this strategy with dating where like I had to make sure that I had multiple options so that if one thing didn't pan out, like I had other things on deck, even if it was just like a date, like I had to have like, I used to be in that. It was like a scarcity mindset almost where like, I got to make sure that I have, some woman in my life that sees me and, wants to spend time with me or whatever, have sex and all that stuff. And shit, I've been single for like 7 years now, and I've gone long stretches of time like without intimacy, without dating, and I didn't think that I could ever be okay living that way, but I am. So like that belief that like I needed female attention or partnership or companionship, like that obviously was not true. So that's something that I've let go of, and it's allowed me to be a lot more selective about who I spend time with, because I don't need to just be, I don't have a need for it. So now I can be more selective, and that has a whole nother set of issues that we could probably get into, where you can get a little bit too picky and start seeing threats and red flags with everyone, and then you don't ever end up with anybody. And I think I might be dealing with some of that as well, where I've gotten so comfortable. But there was a time when I thought that I was going to retire from the sheriff's office. And then there was a time when I thought that I would be a barber, owning at least one, if not multiple barbershops. And now I do breath work and cold exposure, and I see the cold exposure kind of going out, and it's this breath work or breathing coach thing that is evolving into a new thing. But I don't for 1 second believe anymore that that's what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. So it's just what I'm doing right now. My role as a father, I still am a father, but how I play that role is completely different now than it used to be. And, and I was just thinking about the other night, I was like, man, like this is a life sentence parenting. It's like, even when they're 40, I'm still probably going to keep my cell phone on all night long so that they can call me in the middle of the night if they need me. And I'm always going to be wondering, am I going to get a call tonight? Like that's going to be there forever.
Yeah.
So there's no escaping that. It's not like once they get older, then I can finally relax and, know that everybody's okay.
So that's what I'm talking about, where it becomes something that holds you back, because it's something that, I mean, it's not to say that that's a bad thing, right? I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. the way that you just described it, like being 40 years old still, or when they're even adults, right? Still keeping your cell phone on at night and everything like that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. This isn't good or bad. It's just I've recognized, I think a big part of it for me was when we moved over here to Tennessee and all of our girls were still back in Utah. And it felt like my role as a father had shifted and changed, but also like my connection to it. And I was still doing that thing of like thinking about it through that perspective of like, I need to be there for them no matter what at any given moment. I need to be able to respond. I need to be able to show up. I need to be able to do all of those things. And living, you know, several states away, thousands of miles away, that's just not a reality. I don't have the opportunity to do that. So it was like they weren't necessarily asking for that, but I had to let that part of myself go in a sense. And what happened was my stress levels dropped. Like I wasn't as anxious about what was going on in their life and worried about them and thinking about it from that perspective of like, what if they need me? And that letting that go, that component of fatherhood that I had for a really long time, then opened up this other space that I couldn't even really see because I was still carrying this other thing. I was still identifying with this other thing. So that's kind of what I was talking about, where it's like there was a component of it that was holding me back from living the life that I really wanted to live or that I want to live. And that's what I think all of this comes down to, right? Where you're talking about all these career shifts and changes going towards what you want to do, right? And I think it's the same thing where we have these versions of ourselves that we want to become, but in order to become that new version of who you are, you have to let go of something else. It's like, that's the way that it works. You can't take that version into the new version. Otherwise, it's not going to be the new version.
Right.
And so I'm always curious about like, what can I let go of? Like, that's the big thing I'm just questioning in my life right now. And I'm looking at it through all of these different like lenses of like, I was thinking about this the other day too, where I stopped wearing my wedding ring like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago or something like that. And at the time it was because of going to jiu-jitsu multiple times a week. And I was getting so heavy that it was hard for me to get my ring off and on all the time for jiu-jitsu. So it was easier for me. Like I would get home from jiu-jitsu and get out of the shower, and then I go to put my ring back on, and my fingers are so swollen that I can't get my ring back on. And so I just stopped putting it on for a while. And then it became like, I just stopped wearing it. But it wasn't a conscious thing of like, I'm not wearing my wedding ring for this reason or for that reason. It just kind of happened organically. And then at some point I just started to think about it, and I was like, oh, I don't need to wear that anymore. That like there wasn't some component of that I needed to have and wear in order to signify to myself and to the outside world that I was married. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm married still, but that identifier, that thing, I think had way more to do with me and rather than the outside world. And it was like, yeah, I just let it go. And I couldn't see the benefit of it. I don't even necessarily know if there's a benefit from that. Like I wear this, when I carry my hair ties with me, I'll put it on that finger, right? So it's kind of funny. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying, dude. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just, that's what I'm constantly trying to understand is what am I willing to fucking let go of in order to become who I want to be. And not even like who I want to be, but who I am meant to be. Like, I think there's a version of me, not even, I used to say that it was a version of Craig. And I don't say that anymore. I think there's a version of me. There's a version of this avatar that I can't see yet, that I'm trying to find. And in order to get there, I have to let go of stuff. It's like you can't, do you know what I mean? It's like the ship that I keep getting on to go to the next part of my life.
Yeah.
It's like you can't carry that stuff if you want to get on this ship. And I was like, well, this is my stuff. I can't let go of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, sorry, then you can't get on this fucking ship. And I'm like, well, I want to get on the ship and go over there. Well, it's like, cool, let go of that fucking stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm doing that all the time. That's an ongoing process, but I'm not doing it. Yeah, like that's a thing that's maybe scary for me that I don't tap into is like, who is this person I'm trying to become? I'm kind of just like on the fucking roller coaster and I'm just like, okay, like what's happening next? I don't really have a fucking plan, dude. I'm just like going with what feels good right now.
Yeah.
You know, and right now, like I mean, I have goals. Like I have goals of like, you know, like the kind of experience I want to be able to provide for people, and like and so it's like, yes, I'm making little changes. Like, what can I let go of to make this vessel a cleaner, more receptive antenna for divine inspiration or the quantum field or, you know, the muse or whatever. Like, how can I be a better vessel? And there's really nothing that I'm not willing to give up. That's a bold statement, and I'm sure I'll be tested on that.
Right.
And I'm sure life will show me something probably within the next fucking hour. That's like, oh, okay, really? What, you want to let go of this? But I mean, it's like I look back at my married life, and like I owned a home and I had stuff, and now like I live in a fully furnished apartment, and everything that I own I could fit in my car. So it's like material possessions aren't really a big deal to me anymore. You know, like the idea that I may never, I don't believe this, but I'm okay with if I don't ever make the same income that I made as a barber, as a shop owner, like I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
You know, I love so much what I do now. And like, if this is what it looks like, then I'm okay with that. So letting go of this attachment that like I need to make more money, like I'm kind of letting go of that right now, is like going away. And it seems like the more I do that, the more opportunities come for me to earn more money. Because yes, like I want to take my kids on vacations and do that kind of stuff, but it's just really, if I want to earn money, it's to have experiences.
Right.
And of course, like to put a roof over my head and like feed myself. But, you know, like, yeah, like I'm not attached to like accumulating. Well, now that I'm 47, I should have like X amount in my 401k and in my portfolio, and I should own this much property. No, fuck all that. I don't care about any of that stuff, you know, like I used to. So yeah, like I'm always letting go of things. I'm kind of letting go of the idea of partnership. You know, like, can I be okay without that ever? Like, you know what? I think maybe I could, because it just frees up more time and energy for me to devote to this thing that I love doing so much. And the two things that I love doing is the work that I do and the relationship I have with my kids. You know, and like, how can I be better at those things and be my best version of those things? But I don't know what that looks like. And like, maybe when I get there, and I think this will be the same for you, it's like when you finally like see that the Craig you're supposed to be, or what you're meant to be, and then you're going to be there for about 5 minutes, like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like, now what?
Yeah.
What's
it's
next?
Always what's
How do
next.
I take it to the next level? You know, because like we're down here with intention.
Yeah.
We didn't come down here to play this game to just fuck around in like open world or whatever it's called. Like, we came down here to do stuff.
Yeah, it's
you know?
always what's next, huh?
Yeah,
Mission
yeah.
accomplished.
It's like, okay, cool. Now, how do I evolve it? How do I
what's
make
next?
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, maybe there is no destination. It's all just the journey, and maybe that's cliche, but yeah.
I wonder if we can let go of that what's next part. The idea that that's because I think, like what you just said, I think about that and I totally agree. I feel like that's exactly what it would be like for me. I would totally be like, okay, cool, now what's next? But I think that also is, boy, I don't know, this challenges my thought here. I was going to say that's a program, and the way that I talk about like these subconscious programs that we have and that we're assigned, and, you know, we use them in order to shape our reality. And I do think that that's a program to a certain extent, but I also think that that might be just some innate thing of consciousness where that's the evolution. Like, in order to evolve, you have to like go towards something. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't evolve just staying still. Even if we look at it from like a scientific point of view of like, you know, there's something is pulling, or you want to see what's on the other side of the hill. Like there's always going to be that thing inside of us, I think.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think I don't think we have to let go of everything. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know, dude.
Yeah. I don't know either. Yeah. Man, I had a thought. Now it's totally gone. Damn.
You gotta let it go.
I was watching you play with the cards, and that I just like totally took me away from what I was thinking. Yeah, fuck. I don't know. It's gone.
Yeah.
Damn. Wow. Yeah,
the relationship thing's hard for me to think about. Like the idea of letting go of being in a relationship. Because I'm at a point with our relationship with Steph and I where I see it as such a, it's like I mean, it's just such a gift. I feel like the relationship is such a, I mean, she's just such a great, beautiful mirror for me. And so it's such an opportunity for, like, I mean, I can imagine a life without her, but it's not a life that I want. And in the event that it ever happens one day, obviously, then that would just be the thing that I have to, you know, okay, that's what's next. I guess I got to figure that out. But the idea of not having a relationship, I don't know, dude. I think if I think if she ever died, but you know, and I was still alive, or if the relationship ended, I don't necessarily think I would go into another relationship. And that's, you know, who knows? I don't fucking know, because that's my MO. But that's also something that I used to do. I don't do that anymore. And I see it from a completely different perspective now. And it feels like that part of me that used to do that when I was younger was very much the scared part, like the part that didn't feel safe to be alone and felt like I needed this and I needed that and all those kind of different things. But at the same time, I don't think that, like, I see our relationship as something that is just enriching the entire experience. And it's such a benefit for so many different reasons. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but that scares me. The idea of, it's not necessarily the idea of not having a relationship. It's the idea of not having a relationship with Steph. Mm-hmm. That's the part that I'm like, I mean, it'll happen at some point, obviously through death or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's like, yeah, that's going to suck. I'm definitely attached to her.
Right. Yeah. Hmm. Wow. Hmm. Yeah, I don't even have thoughts like that right now. You know, I would love to have that thought in my head, like that I had somebody in my life that I just couldn't imagine being without, you know. Hopefully that's still in my future, you know, but I did get my thought back.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It
Let's
came
hear
back. It was struggling with allowing myself to be okay with who I am right now in this moment. Where it's like, yes, it's like that drive to keep evolving and letting go and taking on new adventures and new roles. Like that is a beautiful gift, but it's also a curse in the sense that, like, at least for me, where it's like no matter what I do, I'm never really satisfied with what I've done. And I always felt like, well, I could have done a little bit more, or I could be doing a little bit more. And it's like I don't allow myself to just be okay with who I am and what I am right now, and like take a step back and look at all that I've accomplished and be like, damn, Steven, you've done a pretty fucking good job, dude. Like you're living a life that your children are going to have stories about you to tell their kids about, and like you're going to be a pretty fucking cool grandpa, and you're going to have a cool life, to talk about and share with people. And it's like I don't give myself enough credit, and I don't just stop and just breathe in the moment very often. It's like, okay, like what can I do next? Like how can I be better? How can I do this? And that doesn't always feel great, when I can't give myself a fucking pat on the back every once in a while, like, good job, Steven. that was good. So I'm practicing that even in like little things, like trying to be like, okay, dude, you did everything you said you were going to do today. Good job, buddy. Outstanding.
Just that idea that we have to accomplish something every day. Otherwise, it's a failure in some sense, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like if you're not doing something of value or worth to either make money and or make yourself a better person, then somehow the day's wasted in a sense. Yeah. Instead of just being, I think about that all the time. That's a real struggle for me as well. It's oftentimes it's through that lens of productivity and hustle and work and what's next in regards to how can we create more, what's coming up next, and how do we build this so that we can make more money and do this and keep expanding and keep growing. And then if it's not that, then it's the other thing of like, how can I heal more? How can I change more? How can I look at things differently so that I become a better version of myself? It's the same energy, just applied, whether it's external in regards to like surviving this way or, becoming a better person this way. But it's the same thing inside of me. And truthfully, it doesn't feel good. That energy isn't something that I enjoy. And as soon as it's like, well, why don't you just chill for a minute? Like when Steph and I went on our honeymoon, we call it a honeymoon. We keep calling it a honeymoon because it felt like a honeymoon, but our anniversary recently. And I knew I just wanted to go sit at the beach. Like that's all I wanted to do for it, right? I just wanted to be able to go and sit at the beach and legitimately just fucking do nothing. And we did that. And that was really hard to do. Like it wasn't something that, it was uncomfortable at times. Because even just like sitting at the beach, I was still... in the water, out of the water, walking here, walking there, looking at seashells, trying to meditate, getting up, going for a walk, getting back into the water, just the idea of doing absolutely nothing is incredibly challenging and hard for me. It's hard to just slow down. It was nice that we were at the beach, quote unquote, doing nothing, even though, like I said, we were still like doing stuff.
Right.
And it was at a much slower pace, and the environment was much more relaxing and nice. And like a chill day at the beach is obviously way better than fucking stressing about other things. But I noticed where it was hard for me to just really truthfully, honestly slow down and kind of like do nothing. And I try to live my life that way, where it's not necessarily like I'm living my life like I'm doing nothing, but I'm living my life to the best of my ability, doing what I want to do. And if that means that on any given day, it's like, well, right now I want to sit here and do nothing, or I want to take a nap, or I just want to keep reading this book, or I want to watch this movie, or I want to get up and go for a walk, or really just being guided by, I got a sneeze coming. Oh my goodness.
There you go.
Really just being guided by that internal thing of like, whatever my body feels like it wants to do and whatever it wants to go towards, that's what I try to do. But it's something that's taken me a lot of practice to continually kind of keep up, because the other thing of like things I have to do, or that mindset of like, okay, what's next? Now I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to be a better version, or I got to hustle more here. That's the part that's really fucking difficult and challenging to kind of counter. But I don't think we're supposed to operate under that kind of like thought process or that energy, right? I think that's a fucking mistake that somebody made a long time ago, thinking that that's what we have to do. I think we should be more animalistic and just like, I get up and I go this way. I'm thirsty, I go over here. I'm hungry, I go over here. I lay back down underneath this tree. I just move based off of instinctual need rather than all these other make-believe things that we've created as far as important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that part of that is something that we can't totally ever let go of because it's just part of our brain chemistry. It's like, I guess if we're in a simulation or a matrix, and like we're like the avatar has certain programs that are built into it that will never go away, that it's like, yeah, like we're down here to like do stuff, you know, and like, and this body, like it wants homeostasis, and as if it doesn't have a need, it doesn't want to do anything. And so we need like these chemicals like dopamine, you know, to get us to do things, you know, because yeah, I think that's an important, yeah, like at least for me, like I'm not down here to just like sit at the beach, but I could go intentionally sit at the beach and make that my goal for the day. And like, I'd still have to somehow make it a goal of like, okay, my goal today is to not do shit, but just sit here and observe beauty, beautiful people walking by, beautiful breeze, beautiful birds, beautiful, you know, sparkles of sunshine off of the water, the waves, the sounds. Like my goal today is to just observe beauty and be intentional about those things, and you know, and let my body rest, you know. So even then I would have to make it an intentional thing, you know. So yeah, I don't think it's possible to not be that way, at least for me anyway, you know. Like everything has to have some purpose for it, you know.
I don't know, I think you might be right. I think sometimes I think too hard about things.
yeah.
I definitely have a hard time. Like I'm way harder on it's not just I'm way harder on myself than anybody else, but I have a hard time just letting things be, right? I'm always trying to peel back layers and look at things from different ways and get to the core of this, that, and the other. And I mean, we were having that conversation last night too, where it's like, we just know too much. There's too much, you know. It's like we're not meant to know all of these different things. It's okay sometimes just to exist. I think about that a lot, where I'm starting to let go of versions of myself, but this idea that I'm on some sort of like healing journey that is going to constantly be in the act of healing and looking and processing and, you know, picking apart and changing this and shifting this program, like that becomes another thing that just takes away from the experience of just living. And I think that's something that I need to get really curious about letting go of as well, where I don't necessarily constantly need to be healing something or looking at something or exploring this shadow part, or do you know what I mean? Like, well, what inner child piece is this connected to? Like, I definitely have gone to the extreme with those things, and it's hard for me to come back. And if I'm honest about it, the reason is because that has been the thing that has led me out of like darkness. That has been the thing that has led me out of depression and out of pain and out of suffering. So if I let go of that process, if I let go of that work in a sense, then the big fear is that I'll slide back into all of those things and go back into those dark holes. And I'm like, I'm not interested in going back into those spaces. Like the version of who I am today is who I want to continue to be. I don't want to slide back into the version of who I used to be. Like I love that guy, and that guy was awesome and he's cool and everything, but like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, totally. Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy anymore.
Yeah.
And for me, the way that I've evolved and changed is by doing all of this work. But I also recognize that, you know, like you can do too much and it becomes, you're too obsessed about it. It becomes too much of a focus. And if it's based out of that fear of like, well, I'm doing this so that I don't fall back into those old routines and those old habits. Yeah, I don't know. There's always, it's balance. That's the answer right there. There's balance to all of these things.
Yeah. You know, something that this might be related, maybe not, but something that's been coming up for me a lot lately is the idea of safety. Because like it comes up a lot in the work that I do. Because I'm at a lot of places, you know, like my main role as a breathwork and cold exposure, coach or facilitator, instructor, is working in these like settings with people that have a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And, safety is a big deal. And I've been thinking about my own relationship to that idea. Like, even I was talking to you and Steph last night, and I was saying how, like, dude, yeah, there's been like years where I don't feel safe fucking ever.
Yeah.
Not in my body, not in my house, not in my car, not in anything, and it was like, well, what does it really mean to be safe? And like, is this kind of one of these like fleeting concepts? Because if we zoom out a little bit or pan out, can you zoom out? Is that even a thing?
Yeah.
Like zooming is going in, right?
You can zoom out.
Can you? Okay, all right. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not. You're the fucking camera guy. So, okay. So if we zoom out, like we're like flying on a fucking rock at 86,000 miles an hour through space in the unknown, and it's like safety is not a real fucking thing, like, ever.
Yeah,
really.
Like our seatbelt on this fucking roller coaster is gravity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an imaginary fucking thing.
Yeah, and there's also
we
debate about that.
See, right?
What the fuck is gravity? Yeah. Yeah, and so like maybe the goal isn't to be safe. Maybe the goal is to be okay without feeling safe.
Yeah.
And like it seems, because it seems like if there is a God that's kind of, or some sort of higher power or divine intelligent being, or maybe it's just like my higher self, right? Like the player of the avatar. It's like I'm not getting relief, or like nothing's coming in that is like gonna make me feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, no, Stephen, like you've got to just learn to be okay, even when you don't feel safe, and still show up in the world, and so I've been thinking about that idea quite a bit, and fear versus love. I know we talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
And again, there's duality, right? Yeah. And it's like, maybe that's not the point of the game.
Safety.
Yeah. And for a lot of people it is, especially in that world, and I think, and maybe this is just how I think because I'm around it so much, and other people aren't even worried about this kind of shit. But like, that's what comes up for me a lot, is like, as I've, like I have these flashbacks of times in my life when I felt really safe. And it's like, I haven't felt like that in so many years.
Yeah.
That I've forgotten what it feels like to feel safe, honestly, and so it's, there's an Alan Watts, little spiel that he gives. It's like more than a quote, but like, have you heard of, you know who Alan Watts is, right? Of course. Yeah. So like, there's this little, segment of one of his talks where he kind of like compares, man, like how do I say, like they call it like the dream talk. Or do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
Where it's like, okay, so he basically, I'm going to give you like my own interpretation of it, but I think people will get it. So he's talking about how he's talking about polarity, right? And the light and the dark, and all these different things that we experience as human beings, having this experience. And so he compares life to a dream, and he says, like, so if you could in one night dream an entire lifetime, right? It's like 80 years of life in one night. And as you dream this lifetime, you have complete control. There never has to be anything unknown. You don't ever have to face anything uncomfortable. It's just nothing but pleasure and fun and there's no danger. It's just like you're totally safe, and it's just nothing but fun and just dinking around all the time, doing all the fun shit you'd ever get to do that you always wanted to do, right? And you would do that he says you do it for like a couple of nights. And then just because of the nature of being human, you would be like, you know what, tonight when I go to sleep, I don't think I want to know. I don't think I want total control.
Mm-hmm.
Give me just a little bit of unknown. Let me just play with that. Right. And then you would wake up from that lifetime and be like, oh, whew, that was kind of a close call. I barely made it out of that one. Right. But then every night you would gamble a little more, and you would surrender a little more of that. Beautiful. Good one. Like you would surrender a little more of that control.
Mm-hmm.
And you would give more and more of it to chance and to the unknown, right? And then he's like, maybe somewhere in that infinite or like the infinite lifetimes that you could dream, right? In those infinite possibilities, maybe you end up dreaming the life that you're actually living right now. And like when I heard that, I was just like, holy shit, man! Like we are wired for danger. We are wired for unknown. We are made to come down here and have an experience where we don't know what's going to fucking happen next. And we don't know if there's a safety net or not, or if we're going to get caught when we leap. It's like, and we wouldn't want it any other way. Like as life as human beings gets safer, right? Where it's like, what do young people do? It's like they play video games where there's unknown, right? Mm-hmm. Where there's challenges, there's adversity, and that's what keeps it exciting. And then they fail and they get pissed and they fucking yell and scream and they do all this shit, and then they come back and they play again. It's like because like life has become so safe, or for them they don't see a need to go out into it's like they're appeasing that part of their programming that is wired for challenge and adversity. They've just found a way to do it like in a video game instead of out here in life, which is really maybe just a video game anyway. Right. And so I've really been, trying to let go of this belief that I need to feel safe. Maybe I don't.
Yeah. I think what it brings up for me is when I think about safety and what it means to feel safe and to be safe, I think we don't give credit to the present moment. And I think oftentimes the idea that we're not safe is projecting either into the future or into the past.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth of it is like if we just look at this moment right now, you and I are both safe.
Yes.
Like if we were going to, it's important, I think, to have a definition of what safety is for an individual person, right? Everybody's definition of what safety is different. But knowing what your definition of that is, and then being really honest about every given moment that you're in.
Yes.
Like right now, we're not in any danger.
Well, relatively speaking, right? Because like an airplane could come crashing into the house, or we're still flying around on that.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Ball of, that rock in the middle of space.
That's
right?
That's thinking past the present moment, because it's future casting that an airplane could come and crash into the house. But now, an airplane hasn't crashed into the house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not in the present moment. You're thinking about something that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that, we're on the rock right now with gravity holding us here. Mm-hmm. And in any given moment, we could all just fucking fling off into space.
Right.
But again, that's not the present moment.
Right.
Like right now, we're warm, we're comfortable, we've got water, there's no risk at all to either of us.
Right.
If we're just really truthful and honest about the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the really challenging part, is it's the same thing of like really hard to just sit on the beach and do nothing. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to just be in the present moment without projecting and thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a component of it where like it might be hardwired into the avatar to some extent because, things haven't always been safe for the human. Like the species we definitely had to do a lot of fighting and surviving and fleeing over the course of our evolution to get to this spot where we could just sit and talk into fucking microphones in a controlled climate.
Yeah.
But I do think that if we just really practice being present in the moment and get really honest about what safety is, the sense that we aren't safe is really just a projection either into the future or into the past. It's thinking about what might happen or remembering what did happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, those things aren't happening. And you're like, well, they might. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, but they might not.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Probability says that, gravity's still going to keep us on this rock for a little while. And an airplane's not going to crash into the house at any given moment.
Yeah.
We just get to sit and chill and wrap up a podcast episode at some point. It's the idea that, and that's the thing too, that I think all of this is, for me, coming back to is just, it's so difficult to just be present moment to moment to moment. Really just be, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm doing. And not trying to fast forward into the next moment, to the next moment.
Just being the Craig you are right now.
Exactly.
And not worried about what the future Craig looks like or is supposed to be.
Yeah. Just be who I am now, do what I do now, and trust that when the time comes to do something else, then I'll be doing something else.
Yeah.
Right? When the time comes. And that's the other thing too, is we worry about all of these things. Like if an airplane crashed into the house right now, you and I would just immediately react to that experience. We wouldn't even necessarily be afraid in that moment.
Right. Yeah.
We would just be reacting and responding. And then like afterwards, we'd be like, that was really fucking crazy. You remember that time the fucking airplane crashed into the fucking house? We didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, maybe fear is just that illusion that is showing us that we're not really being present with where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I have to do a lot. Is that exact thing? So like I don't do it so much anymore. But there was a while where I was like really hooked on like keeping up with all the shit that was going on in the world, like especially around the election time, and like, oh, like what happens if this person gets elected, and like, what happens if this person gets elected? But then I would just have to come back to like, yeah, but today, right now, like none of that is happening. And so just kind of bringing myself back to the present moment. I mean, like, okay, well, in this moment, we're okay, everything. But then ultimately, like, I believe that we're all okay anyway. Like even if the Earth does smack into some other planet or giant meteor, or the airplane crashes into the house, it's like it doesn't.
Right, it doesn't
fucking matter anyway.
Like that's the whole big overarching
anyway.
thing is like, I think all of these things, like safety is in regards to like, do I feel safe right now? Well, maybe I don't really. Yeah, because even if you die, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like death isn't something that is an ending. It's not something to be afraid of. It's none of those things.
Yeah. So like, what the fuck is safety anyway?
Exactly.
Is safety just like a concept that is only exists because fear exists, and fear being maybe an essential program for playing this game, right? It's like, well, we need to have fear because otherwise, like, we'll do dumb shit that will kill the avatar. So there has to be fear in there if we want to keep playing the game for as long as we can to make it to the end, where the avatar expires naturally, in a bed with a woman and you just go to sleep after a good orgasm and never wake up, right? That's the ultimate fucking goal.
96 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so in order to make it to that point, like I need some fear to keep me alive from making dumb decisions or something. So these are all things I just whirl around in my head,
I think it's all just the like I think fear exists in order to remind us that it's all love. I think that's the only reason that it exists. I think that's why we split off of consciousness, is to remind us that we are just consciousness and that we're all just being carried. So that's the only reason that it exists, is to just give us a counter. Because otherwise, yeah, I don't know. Like you said, these are all just fucking things that rattle around in the old fucking imaginary brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't really exist anyways.
Yeah.
Dude, this has been fun. I want to keep talking, but I have to piss, and my nose keeps running. And but I've really enjoyed, and I'm excited, and I'm grateful, and I love you, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast, dude.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're going to be, obviously, we'll share his socials. You can go follow Steven on Instagram. Is it Ice Life Tennessee, right?
Yep. Ice Life Tennessee.
And if you're in Nashville, hit him up for breath work and all those kind of different things. And not just in Nashville either, but Tennessee as a whole and all over the country one day soon.
Yeah. I travel.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I'm all over the place. So, yeah.
And go subscribe to Brave Men Dare everywhere you can find it. Also, we don't mention it enough on the podcast, but leaving us review, rating the podcast, all those kind of things on the different platforms like iTunes and Spotify and all these different places that you can find the podcast, that really helps the podcast grow and expand and reach more people. And if you really dig the show and you want to leave us a review, that would be awesome. Also, if you're interested, we've got great sponsors. You can hit those up. That helps support the podcast and everything as well. And yeah, we just really appreciate all the support that we've gotten with the podcast so far. And we'll talk to everybody soon on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Brave Men Dare. If you haven't yet, take a moment and subscribe to our channel, click that little notification bell, and check out some of these other clips. Last but not least, we'd really appreciate it if you sent this podcast to somebody else. Share it with a friend, share it with a buddy, and don't hesitate to reach out. The conversations that we have on the podcast are meant to inspire you, but also we want to hear what it brings up for you. Whether you share it in the comment, send us an email, or call us up. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.